Okay, I'd like to thank you guys for coming out today in the midst of dealing with COVID all over Thailand. I'm Ken Brown. I represent Business Class Asia, and I'm also here with Thomas Carden of American International Tax Advisors. And we are going to cover a couple topics and issues that Americans deal with, American expats, um, that they face regularly. Also, we can talk about company creation, people that are, they're trying to get businesses going, how we can help them, and things like that. I'll kind of give you an introduction of how Thomas and I have met. We've been working together for 2.5 years. Thomas, along with my CEO of Business Class Asia, basically Business Class Group based out of Hong Kong, we're getting together and trying to address the issues that American expats are facing. We face a lot of issues outside the United States. Our bank accounts are being closed, even our retirement accounts are being closed when they figure out we live outside of the United States. And this has become an issue mainly because it probably started off with the Patriot Act when a lot of our financials are being disclosed, and then also the institution of FATCA. When FATCA came into play, basically the United States had all the foreign governments to agree to provide our financial information back to the United States. So there's no longer any hidden money for Americans. Basically, when you do your reporting, they're just comparing notes to, what they received to what you're reporting. Thomas and I regularly deal with some similar problems with most clients. Along those lines, when they get to Thomas and have an issue, it could be a reason because of FATCA. So reporting your income is it's very, very important now, because they really know exactly, for the most part, what you're paying, what you've been paid. At Business Class Asia, we are regularly working with Thomas. We help American expats to open bank accounts back in the States, as well outside of Thailand and outside of the United States as well. We can provide an occupational retirement plan to receive funds and provide you with an investment platform similar to Fidelity or Vanguard, along those lines. Thomas can talk a little bit maybe about how tax-wise that benefits you as an American expat living in Thailand. There's special benefits of you living in Thailand. We can talk more individually because everybody's tax situation is different, but for the most part, there's special benefits for Americans that live in Thailand as well. And we are regularly assisting entrepreneurs in company creation outside of Thailand, and we have partners that do companies inside of Thailand, as well as assist them in opening bank accounts for those companies as well in Hong Kong and Singapore. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, we can assist you with doing those services as well. Out of our Hong Kong office, we may also be able to assist you with medical and insurance, and also life insurance as an American expat outside of the United States. Getting back to the story how we met, basically Thomas and my CEO got together and addressed those issues that Americans were facing. And about 3 years ago, they started the process to recruit me I was living in United Arab Emirates as a financial advisor there for 7 years. And since then, Thomas and I have been working very closely together, dealing with American issues and tax situations and that kind of stuff. So I'll go ahead and introduce Thomas as well. Thomas won't tell you his whole story, but I will, because I tell my clients all the time. But Thomas, of American International Tax Advisors, Thomas was the lead manager at Jackson Hewitt for international taxes for 7 years. He also has a master's in international tax law. And the thing that we run into, a lot of Americans are getting their taxes done. You can get anybody. I could do your taxes. Anybody could do your taxes, but are they done well? And if you have an issue, is that person going to be able to effectively talk to your, the IRS agent and resolve any issues that you might have. So that's why it's important to deal with someone like Thomas. So I will introduce Thomas Carden of American International Tax Advisors.
Thank you, Ken. I always feel like I'm holding a hot dog with no mustard. Good. I'm actually going to breach a little bit of the subject. I think a fairly diverse crowd, although a small one here. One of the original topics of this seminar was going to be very specifically PayPal pulling out of individual accounts in Thailand. Is that the issue you have, or? Okay. Well, this seminar was originally going to be sponsored by Payoneer, but unfortunately during COVID, the corporate policy did not allow them to travel. And I know Shane, who is helped sponsoring this, has a lot of people with this issues and may be watching this video online. We, as a company, have used Payoneer for several years now. We referred a lot of people to Payoneer. And oddly, I first met Shane almost 3 years ago at a Payoneer event that they had sponsored here earlier in Chiang Mai. I cannot speak to exactly how they operate. We use them as an alternative to PayPal to this. They have been very good, very fabulous customer support and service. If you're doing business, especially with Amazon or eBay in the United States, Payoneer is the best platform to pull the money out of and have it transferred into whatever country you need to do with. They are still actively opening up accounts, even individual accounts, which PayPal is not willing to do this. And really the best thing I can say is we have actively used Payoneer ever since that seminar 3 years ago. They really are a good alternative. Inside this notes, we'll probably put the contact information for Payoneer, so you can get to their specifically how they operate. Again, I don't want to make an issue with, I don't work for Payoneer, and I don't want to say something that may be incorrect for how they do stuff, but they are very specifically still willing to contact on an individual basis anybody who wants information about the subject. We fully realized and tried to get this scheduled up here, but unfortunately, again, Omicron came in and has just shut their ability to travel down with the corporation. So we're sort of, I don't get paid a referral fee or anything for Payoneer other than that we refer a lot of our clients to there. They are a good alternative to fix that issue with this. And if you do need more information, you can contact Shane or myself or Payoneer directly and we get some contact information. But if you're stuck in that situation of, oh crap, I've got business in the United States or globally, I've been using PayPal, there is an active alternative in being able to use Payoneer that works not in the exact same way, but in very similar circumstances to what PayPal does for you. So it's really good, to it. So, one of the other sides of this too is Ken was specifically coming in here to be the business formation specialist in that seminar. One of the things that he's not talked about adequately, and I think I should go kicking him once in a while, to this, is in today's world, the concept of operating as a digital nomad as just yourself doing a business, either selling products or selling services, is getting to be much more difficult. You have to almost now form a company somewhere in the globe to this. You don't necessarily want that to be a U.S. company to this. It can often be a Hong Kong company. We have a lot of clients who set up Hong Kong companies to this. Business Class Asia has a specialist who works with Ken, who sets up companies that are tailored for your particular needs if you're in this situation to this. Okay, now this gets more complex as an American to this. When you're an American, setting up a company, you can go set up a company and you'll see these online services, and then they're going, okay, where's your bank account? And you call up the banks and they're like, no, we will not deal with you as an American, even if you own a foreign company to this. The systems that Business Class Asia uses are very specifically able to open up bank accounts in the countries that you are setting up incorporating into. This is a huge problem now, and oddly goes back to anti-money laundering rules. The mob has used companies and trust and all these things to ferret money around the world. So the banks have gotten very, very tight on their standards of that. So if you see, $199 online to go form a Hong Kong company, you're not going to get anywhere with that. You're literally wasting your money. You need to call up Ken at Business Class Asia and look at the entire situation rather than just as the cheapest fare to this, because it's literally going to waste money, because you will not be able to open up an account in Hong Kong unless you use very, very specialized services with this. It's when I was contacted by Mark Kirkham, who is the CEO of Business Class Asia, sort of an informal meeting. We'd already been in tax business here. I've been in tax business for about 6 years in Thailand prior to that, with it through various offices. And I went into their office and I said, we've got a problem to this. We can handle the taxes, we can handle the planning, we can help people with tax treaty and pensions planning to this, we can get them tax efficient, but they have nowhere to go. Okay, if you try to go into a Thai bank, you can open up a checking account at no interest. You can't do stocks, you can't do bonds, you can't do any type of real investment stuff, and you will more than likely get a 0% interest. If you try to go outside of Thailand, you're not going to open up an account in Hong Kong, you're not going to open up an account in Singapore, you're not going to open up accounts anywhere to this stuff. I said, all of this is legal to do this, but most firms have looked at this as too difficult to deal with U.S. compliance. And I said, this is a huge problem that no one is addressing. And I said, if you work with us, I will show you how to do this, and the laws and rules that have to be done with this, and you guys can grow. And now, Business Class Asia is a separate company from us. I run American National Tax Advisors, but we're the two sides of a coin. We do the tax side, which is difficult, but the tax issues in American reporting affect the investment side. And so that's where Business Class Asia comes in, is they're that other side, and then, several times a week we get the same phone call. Help me, the Thai banks won't open my account, or they're closing my account, and or the U.S. banks are closing my account, and they will not let me do any investments anymore, and they're going to send me a check here in 3 weeks. What do I do? And this has gotten so bad that we had a client who was with Edward Jones. And I'm not going to badmouth Edward Jones on this stuff, because it's a brokerage company, because they have their compliance rules they have to go with as they see them. But the two individuals had moved from Hawaii to here, and they could not talk to their broker in back in Hawaii, so they called in the regular phone number. And they said, well, we've just moved to Hawaii. And they're like, oh, that means we have to freeze your account and you can't sell anything to this. And they're like, what? Nobody ever told us that, because we've just moved here. So their account was now frozen. They could only sell assets and cash out. And they could not change assets anymore to this. But Edward Jones was so upset that their broker back in Hawaii had not told them this. They wanted to fire the investment broker, had no idea these two gentlemen were here to this. That's the level of problems. These two gentlemen were incredibly nice. They specifically wrote a letter saying we had never informed our individual broker that we were moving from Hawaii to this. He had no responsibility or knowledge of this whatsoever. But that goes to show you the level of what you're fighting if you're an American trying to pull these accounts or trying to invest overseas. There's a wide range of alternatives that has been worked on for many years that Ken's firm can help you out with to this, as an American. But in a lot of cases, though, the same situation is happening with the Europeans. Where do I invest? How do I invest? They can also have a full range of investments available for you there. Now, and again, this is kind of this all ties in together, because it's kind of the same rules that PayPal had to begin with to this. Thailand came down on PayPal very hard and said, people are not paying VAT if they're using these PayPal accounts, these individual PayPal accounts. So you have to be a registered company, which means registered for VAT. So, the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and tighter. You will have to be operating as a business somewhere. It's possible to operate as a business here in Thailand to this if you're doing some type of business online to this. It's going to be tighter and tighter and tighter, and you can't. freewheel anymore as much as you used to by any stretch. Do this. You have to be more regimented. Do this. Now, fortunately though, with all the pain it is to be an expat, there are some very, very big benefits here, especially if you're retired in Thailand. Okay. The first of this is, and I'm going to give you a little bit of advice about this. Do not try this at home. There are some very, very legal constructs in this, and the writing with the IRS has to be very, very specific on how this is done. And even then, they will ask questions about this on a regular basis. Okay. Article 19 of the U.S. Tax Treaty says, in effect, and I'm going to paraphrase here, pensions are only taxable in the country that you are resident in. Okay. Between the United States and Thailand. What this means...
Just repeat.
Okay. Shane has asked me to repeat that because I moved the microphone down. Pensions, Article 19 of the United States-Thailand Tax Treaty states that pensions are only taxable in the state that you are resident, unless you're a U.S. government employee. Okay. U.S. government pension, this does not work for. What this means is, if you are taking money out of an IRA, 401k, SEP Simple PO, or a regular pension, and even a variable annuity, or a regular annuity out of the United States, only Thailand has the rights to tax that pension. To this, okay? Effectively, using some very complex legal forms in this, again, do not try this on your own, because there's sub-clauses in context that you have to go in and address, and to do this with the tax treaty. You can take all of your pension money out of the United States free of U.S. tax as long as you meet certain residence criteria here in Thailand. Okay. Now, Thailand has full rights to tax this pension as well. Then you've moved the taxation from the United States to Thailand. But here's the kicker of this. If the money is outside of the pension for 12 months before it is brought into Thailand, it is also free of tax in Thailand. So you can effectively, using proper planning, as an American, retire in Thailand free of income tax with this. Again, you need to consult a very heavy professional on this because this is very, very specific work with this. Do this. But we've had a very good success rate over the years. Many, many clients have gotten this. The IRS will occasionally send a letter back because the math doesn't match on the tax return. Then you send an explanation back to this, and the situation gets resolved. Now, one of the wackier benefits of this is, if say you've been living in Thailand for the last 3 or 4 years, do this, you've been fully retired here, this is your place of residence, do this, you can go back to the United States and use and amend your tax returns for the past 3 years and get refunds. We've gotten refunds from the United States of hundreds of thousands of dollars for previous amounts that have been taken out. You can only go back 3 years, which oddly, that means for right now, this being January of 2022, you can go back and refile your 2020 return, your 2019, and your 2018 return and get a refund on all the taxes you paid in the United States. Do this. You can also get the 2021. This is only available up until April 15th of the year, when the statute of limitations for the earliest year goes away. So then you would be doing 2021 tax, 2020 tax, and 2019 tax. But up until April 15th, you can go back the extra year with this and get a refund. Do this. So, again, this is where Ken comes into. So you've taken this money out, but you've got to set it outside the Thailand for a year. How do you begin to plan with that? That's where Ken comes in. He can help you set up the accounts. You can move them. You can keep them in a U.S. account if you need to. You can move them overseas, and again, increase your tax deferral over a period of time with this. So that's the big benefit of Thailand. Not that the food's not fabulous, the weather's beautiful, and the women are incredible, but as a retiree here, you can really plan and make your retirement savings go a whole lot longer here with this process. It's kind of there are very, very few countries where the tax treaty is this liberal to this, with us. So, all good. Now, the final thing I'm going to mention, though, is on a regular basis, we get people who come to us who are U.S. citizens or green card holders who have not filed tax returns. Okay? And for whatever reason, somebody told them, oh, you're making less than foreigner inclusion, you don't have to file your U.S. tax return. Do this. This will get you in very, very serious trouble to this. If the IRS deems you to owe a certain amount of money and you have not been communicating with them, they send a notice to the State Department, and the State Department will yank your passport, which means one of three things can happen. Okay, one, you decide I'm going to travel back to the United States on my valid passport. You get to the United States, at the border, they yank your passport, and you are stuck in the United States until you finish getting all your taxes done. They are processed and allowed, and then they will issue a notice, and this process takes many, many months and tens of thousands of US dollars to fix. Okay. The second thing is, and this was the actual first passports ever revoked was actually up here in Chiang Mai to this. A gentleman had walked into the U.S. Embassy to get his Thai son a U.S. passport. He goes in, they said, "Oh, could we see your passport again?" And he was like, "Oh, yes." And so they took his passport and they gave him a card and said, "Here, call this number at the IRS." Do this. Your passport is no longer valid. We can only issue a passport for you that says valid to travel only to the United States. Now what that means is he can't do his 90-day check-in. Once he doesn't do his 90-day check-in, he's got 30 days where he can pay a fee, and then he starts getting to where he's banned for a year after 90 days, and on and on and on with this. To this. And so now this gentleman actually was working in Afghanistan for the U.S. government at the time. The U.S. government could not even get him out of Thailand to go work in Afghanistan to help out with the war effort. That's how serious this is to this. So one of those things happens. You also, the third thing of this is you go to renew your passport, you send it in dutifully, and you don't get your passport back, guys, because you owe U.S. taxes. Now, if you make more than $12,500 of income, you are required to file a U.S. tax return, no matter where that money is earned in the world to this. You can exclude actually 2022, it's about $112,000 off of your earned income, not retirement income. So if you got wages or business income, you can exclude $112,000 off that, but you have to file the tax return and the foreign earned income exclusion form to qualify for that. If you've got a W-2, so say you are a U.S. contractor over here or anywhere in the world and you've got a W-2, you're making $60,000, but you're living overseas, you don't file that tax return, the U.S. government thinks you owe $15,000 or $20,000 a year. So you don't do that for 3 years and you never contact the IRS. The IRS thinks now you're a tax deadbeat because you've just never filed the form, and suddenly they yank your passport and you're screwed to this. You have to go in, file those forms, because to file those forms, $300, $400, $500, $600, depending upon your level of complexity, to do that. In order to get your passport back, the deposit is $10,000. On average, the fees have been $25,000 to $30,000 to get a passport back. It's that big of a bureaucratic nightmare to do this with this. So, and if you know anybody who says, I don't have to file tax returns, tell them sooner or later you're going to get caught, because the Thai banks report the amount of money back to the United States now for the U.S. citizens. To this, you can't hide anymore like you used to for years. Do this. So, I hate to put the fear of God into people about filing their taxes. Do it. It's a lot easier for us to sit there, because then I don't have to spend hours and hours dealing with the IRS that you're paying for. Just get your taxes done, and more than likely, your tax bill is going to be zero unless you have children. To this. I think I only have 2 people could possibly have children. 3. You got any children? Anybody with any children in the room? So okay, so nobody in the room. I still speak because we're doing the filming on this. One of the joys of this is when you have people who do have children to this, as long as they've got a certain amount of earned income, they're still able to qualify for what's called the additional child tax credit, which is about $1,200 a year. No, sorry, $1,400 a year to this. So it's either $1,200 or $1,400. Sorry, it's very early in the morning for me. So what happens is, if they meet this particular criteria to this, they will not only owe any U.S. tax, but they can get a refund check just based upon the fact that they have children, U.S. children with a U.S. Social Security number, and that's really key to this. So we have a lot of families who come over here and work who get very, very nice checks back from the U.S. government to this. Finally, and sometimes I feel like a dentist. Everybody looks at me like, oh my God, this is painful. Finally, I'm going to go through the stimulus checks on this. Okay, stimulus checks have been the biggest nightmare for us from a logistical standpoint to this. But if you are a U.S. citizen, you are generally eligible for the first $1,200 check, the $600 check, and the $1,400 check with this. Now, you have, unless you are pulling from Social Security, you will have to have filed tax returns to get those checks back with this. Okay. Now, the nightmare issue of this is the IRS is even if you put direct deposit on it, the IRS has tended to mail the checks into Thailand, which takes several months, and then of course the Thai postal system never gets them to this, and the process is arcane, at least, to try to get these checks done. We actually do work on that. There are actually also phone numbers. So if we've had people who have applied for the check they've never gotten, the IRS said, no, we sent the check, then you have to call and do a check trace to this. But there is money sitting out there available for you if you haven't filed your taxes. It can go a long way towards paying the tax bill to get you caught up on your taxes with this. So finally, the last little bit of good news. As long as you are not willful in your intent to hide money overseas, you can use what's called the Streamline Filing Program to get caught up, which means 3 years of the last tax returns you have to file, and 6 years of your foreign bank account reporting form, where you have to report all of your liquid accounts to this. That essentially, if you do that and all of your income is overseas, this is being key to this, the IRS effectively says we don't worry about the few past years to this. However, you do, from that point, you get to pass once, and you can move forward with this. Ken likes to call this an amnesty. I kick him every time he does. Say it's not an amnesty, but it's a program that you can go into, and it allows you to not have to do a huge amount of fixing on this stuff in the past. You can get caught up with stuff and be clean with this.
Can you talk about FBAR?
Okay, the FBAR. Anybody familiar with the FBAR, the Foreign Bank Account Reporting Form? Do this? Okay. Foreign Bank Account Reporting Form has actually been here for about 20 years, but it really came to prominence about 10 years ago when FATCA was passed. FATCA is called the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. If you try to go and open up an account anywhere overseas, they'll start wanting all your U.S. information because they have to report that information back to the Internal Revenue Service to this. So there's a paper trail to this. So on your side as an individual, if you have more than $10,000 in accounts overseas, and this is important, it's not just $10,000 per account, it's $10,000 in accounts overseas. So you can have 3 or 4 accounts with $3,000 into it. You've got $12,000 overseas. You're required now to file the FBAR form. This involves the high balance of the account during the year, not on December 31st, but whatever the peak balance was during the year, the account number, the name of the financial institution, and the bank branch or the financial branch that you have. So if it's an insurance company, probably may be the headquarters, but if it's a bank branch here in Chiang Mai, where your account is registered, you would use that. Failure to file an FBAR is not a percentage of the tax due on the money. That's generally going to be almost nothing. But failure to file penalties based upon that high value that the account has hit over the years. So, and that penalty is 50% of that high value. So let's put it this way. You sell a house for $100,000. It moves into an account here into Thailand. Then for whatever reason, you move that account you move that money into a different account number to it. So that $100,000, and you've not filed your FBAR, and the IRS detects this. The penalty on the first account number of the $100,000 will be $50,000. On the second account number, it will be $50,000 per account to this. All of your money has just been wiped out by non-filing of this form to this with it. And so, in Thailand, you have to have 800,000 bahts here for a deposit. That count, that's required to be reported on your FBAR. If the IRS were to come down on you, you'd have to pay 400,000 baht as a fine for this. It's rough to this. So, you need to file taxes, with this. We can help. We do everything from full board planning. We work with companies doing business in the United States. We do a lot of digital nomads who may not even be American, but they're dealing with Amazon or eBay in the United States. We're able to push those guys in a way to where they get to be tax efficient, using things like W8 bins. Probably a different seminar with Shane next time to it. But we do a full range of services. We are by far the biggest firm here in Thailand, and we're rapidly approaching to be the largest firm in Southeast Asia for what we do. But we really specialize, and we try to work with everybody. We also work to make it as affordable for you guys as possible. I'm also going to tell you, if you can make a change in your life that's going to be more efficient on just the compliance cost, I'm going to tell you, move from 10 accounts down to 2, because your FBAR cost is going to be a whole lot lower, to this. So, our goal is to make this as painless as possible for everybody, unless like the dentist, there are no drills involved in this. Any questions?
Is it adjusted gross income or gross income of 12.5?
It's gross income. Gross income, 12.5.
Before any deductions or any?
Yeah, so you make $12,500, you got to file a U.S. tax return. So, yeah. So it's,
What about joint accounts? Do they count?
Yeah, if you sign on the account, you got to report. And here's one of the kickers of this. You sign on, so say you work for a Thai company to this. So you work for a Thai company and you're a signature on that company account. You don't have any ownership interest. Guess what? You've got to report that account because you have signatory power. And effectively, this isn't just bank accounts. This is any type of investment account, any type of insurance account. If it has a liquid value in it, you have to report that on the FBAR. So there's a form called the 8938, which is goes on your actual tax return to this. That has higher balances that you have to report to, and you don't have to report business accounts with it. But that one doesn't have the penalty. The FBAR does have the penalty. In fact, anybody know the name of the U.S. government agency you report the FBAR to? It's very good, very good. It's the Financial Crime Center of the Treasury Department is where you report to this form to it. If they get serious, that's the name of the agency you actually report to.
Can you back file FBARs too?
Yeah, you can back file FBARs.
And they leave you alone as long as you file them?
As long as you haven't been doing anything criminal, they have been very, very, very lenient on allowing you to file these things. And oddly, did not know I have to file this is a valid reason for using the programs to this. Okay, but if you have been hiding money in Swiss accounts overseas, that's a very, very different issue to this. That's willful contact. Is where I have been hiding money to cheat on my taxes. That's a separate set of programs you have to go through. We do handle those, although how do I describe this? Your average bill at that particular point goes north of $100,000 to keep you out of prison. Do not hide money overseas anymore, because banks around the globe, when FATCA passed, have to report. And here's why they have to report. If they don't report, the bank is subject to a 30% fine on every transaction that goes through the U.S. Treasury banks in New York City. So if they move, so a bank is non-compliant. They move money from, say, a Swiss account to a Thai account. The Thai bank is considered deemed to be non-reporting of U.S. citizens. That Thai bank, even though it does not have anything to do with the U.S., will only get $700,000 of its $1 million, because the bank will stop it in New York City, take 30% of the money out, and only send $700,000 that wire to. Every bank in the world, every international transaction has to go through that banking system, and you get stuck with 30%. So your accounts are going to be reported to the U.S. That's expensive.
You said that being a signatory to a bank account means you have to report that bank.
On the FBAR, yes.
What if you're just a beneficiary? Say my wife just has me as a beneficiary in case she dies and goes quickly to me, simple as that. Do I have to report that bank account?
Generally, I would recommend yes.
Just repeat that.
Okay, the question was, if you're a beneficiary of a bank account to this, do you have to report the bank account? You're not a signatory on the bank account with it. In the beneficiary rules, you get a whole series of other complexity things to it, especially if this would be qualified as a trust to it. But if it's just a bank account, you are the secondary beneficiary. Safety's sake, you'd have no tax responsibility for that account. You are far better off to report it than to not with it. There's no tax due on the FBAR form. This is just an information form. If in doubt, report every time.
Okay, you can file it in 5 minutes online.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, we generally tell people that you can do this yourself online. To it, you go to finsend.gov to this. You can file it online. With it, if you haven't done a bunch of years, you probably need to talk to us first to make sure you've gotten it straight. But on an annual basis, you can go on and do this online. You know, it's wholly possible to do. The system has, since they came up with the finsend.gov, the new system, about 5 years ago, it has steadily gotten easier to use. At first, it was atrociously hard to use, but now it's better to do. You know, but you need to make sure you're doing your U.S. tax compliance. You know, any other questions?
Say a little bit more about the amnesty, non-amnesty. There was something about 6 years of bank accounts.
Okay, yeah, okay. To do that, and again, not amnesty.
Amnesty.
I'll go
see,
over.
you
I'll go
understand
and pick
amnesty. That's why we say amnesty.
We're
I
asked.
get the concept.
You get it?
Explain a little more
Catching up.
about the FBAR and the Streamline Filing. Okay, Streamline Filing requires you to file 3 years of back tax returns, and oddly, right now until April 15th, that means 2020, 2019, and 2018. After April 1st, April 15th, it becomes 2021, 2020, 2019. Okay, so you have to file the last 3 years and the last 6 years of FBARs. Now, oddly, the website, when it rolls over into January, only allows you to do 2021, 2020, so you go and do those 6 years of FBARs on the website, and with the right excuse, and then you fill out a separate form as well, explaining how you were not willful on this. From a U.S. tax standpoint, that will absolve you of all penalties, but should you owe some tax, you'd have to pay the interest on that tax due. But as long as your income is overseas, you're generally going to owe no tax.
In 6 years, I have 2 bank accounts here.
Yeah.
In 6 years, the accounts have been up and down sometimes.
You will annually report the high balance in those accounts, whether it's been up or down or to that. That's all you do. It's literally, you go through your bank statements. This was the high balance of the account, and you put it in for each year for the account number.
And taxes based off of whatever the high.
No. There's no tax due on an FBAR. It's only an information reporting form. Now you need to, say you've got $5 million in an account in Thailand, you've made some interest. You can't put $1.30 worth of interest on your tax returns without having some type of explanation. You've got to go in and report your taxes, the income you've received overseas. So that's the side of this. And part of it is, and again, it's going to make sense. Somebody's got, $11,000. Yeah, they may have $80 worth of interest. No big deal. But if you've got $5 million overseas and you're not making any interest off it, the IRS can look at that and go, something here is not making sense. So that's what Streamline does. Somebody physically looks at a Streamline filing return and looks at the math and says, okay, yeah, clearly not an issue. Other times, you have to do some more detailed explanation on it. And it gets more complex. A lot of people have trust, foreign companies, they get much more complex than if you have a company in the United States. If you own more than 10% of a company overseas, you have to file a 5471 form, controlled foreign corporation reporting form, with certain criteria. If you have a trust in, say, Hong Kong or Cook Islands, there's 3520, 3520A reporting. When you moved overseas, the more complex your life is, the much more difficult your tax reporting gets. So we help out with all of that. Okay, I'll go and hand it back to Ken.
I just wanted to add on a little bit. Thomas does the tax stuff. I do more of the accounts opening, and I would say that I can't stress enough that our Americans, if you go and open an account today, even as a Thai person, they'll pull out a W-9 form to sign saying, I am not American. You understand what I'm saying? So everywhere in the world now, people have to sign off. The banks are getting people to sign an American form to say that I am, I am an American, this is my social security number, or I am not an American. It's a big, big deal. And again, if you haven't filed taxes, I run into the contractors, they think they're making under the foreign earned income exclusion, they don't have to do the reporting. But in order to get that, you have to file the taxes to get that credit towards that credit towards your taxes. So yeah, and again, if you're working in Thailand, the taxes are higher, I think, in Thailand than it is in the States. So you've been paying a higher tax amount for your income if you're working here than in the U.S. You get with Thomas, he's going to file your taxes. You're not going to owe any money. You do your amnesty file. I'm joking. Your streamline filing, But everybody understands amnesty. That's all. But it is. It's a big deal. If you need to come do it now before they fine you. I don't know if you understand some of the legislation now that's with the current administration. They're trying to improve and help the IRS with filing. I think they're asking for $8 billion. And it's to bring on new agents, bring in new technology. Things are not going to get, less intrusive in your life. You're not going to be able to hide more. So coming and talk to us, meeting and talking to us is free. We come to Chiang Mai. We travel wherever we're in Pattaya. We do speak at the expat group down there. We can really go, all over. And Thomas and I are located in Pacific Place in Bangkok. And we're in separate buildings. Our offices are in different buildings, but we're located right next to Landmark in Bangkok. And we invite you to message us with any questions or contact us in any way. And I think Shane will probably put a link in for us. We thank everybody that came today, and if we can, help you out in any way, please reach out to us. Thank you very much.